Your long lines could be the dad speaking to the teenage girl, and it's, "You stabbed me."
I thought about that too, like just doing a really dumb line, just like the dad saying, like, "I really want burgers for dinner." Like it has nothing to do with the theme at all.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to StoryFellas, the podcast where we make stories and break stories. I'm your host, Tommy Antonucci.
And I'm your host, Zach Lovelace.
Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Just a normal Tuesday, dude. Just rocking in the free world. Work is schmirk, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yes, work is schmirk. That'll be when our first T-shirt comes out. That'll be it.
I think it's worthy of a T-shirt. But what about you, man? You always open up on me. You always ask me that question.
Yeah, why don't you ever ask me? Why don't you ever ask me? You don't give me a chance.
You don't give me a chance.
Fine. Well, I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. We're traveling this weekend, visited some family, feeling refreshed, feeling renewed, in the sense of catching up with people. You know, when you go on a trip and you come back and you feel like, I need a vacation from the vacation just because, I don't know, traveling.
Vacations. I hate vacations.
Elaborate.
I'm anti-vacation.
Anti-vacation? Are you a trip guy or a vacation guy? If you go somewhere, do you like exploring around or do you like sitting in a chair and not moving?
Oh, I really like exploring for sure. But that's not really relaxing to me.
No. That's why we've started separating it into trip and vacation. Those are two distinct things.
No, there's a third category that you're overlooking, and it clearly shows your bias here.
Okay.
The staycation. You take off time of work and you don't do anything. Like you just at home because it's the comfort of your life that you've constructed to support you, just doing what it does best, And I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do anything. I do things. I go places. I enjoy my life. Okay.
So out of the three, you would choose staycation. That's your favorite?
Just getting older. Yeah. I'd rather just like pretend like I went somewhere and then just people think I'm gone and they don't text me and don't call me.
Well, with green screen
StoryFellas episode coming up tonight, man. I just wish you were in town. Maybe you could do it. Oh, but I know that you're in Italy right now. You can't come. Gets you off my back, dude. Gets you off my back. And I'm just like,
yeah. Well, with green screen technology and AI and all of that, you could just take a photo and be anywhere.
That's true.
People are like, man, Zach was in Nebraska last week, and now he's into the Antarctic.
I do love the Antarctic. I would never go to Nebraska though. There's nothing to see there. No.
All right, Zach, I need you to roll for a story. I need you to roll a 10-sided die.
Oh boy, here we go. 10-sided. It's a 2. Man.
Oh man, you lost.
Oh man, I didn't blow on the digital die.
You should have. Just like a N64 cartridge.
Yeah.
All right. You rolled a sibling that no one can seem to remember, no matter how hard they try. So we have someone in a family blending into the background, and that could be taken kind of figuratively, where they just are the forgotten child, or we could take it hyper literally, where they are completely forgotten in a supernatural way.
It kind of sounds like an episode of Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh man, it does. I was thinking Doctor Who.
That too. Doctor Who totally, yeah.
Do you know in Doctor Who when they get the Fairly Odd Parents and
the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour?
They crossover with Fairly Odd Parents and Doctor Who.
It does sound like that kind of sitcom-y, which we've been in this territory before.
Every day.
I think it's interesting because I took it more of a horror kind of thing.
I actually do get horror vibes from it if we wanted to take it that route. It doesn't have to be fun. It does feel kind of haunted-esque kind of thing. A sibling that no one can seem to remember no matter how hard they try. Dude, I love you might know this about me, but I love plots that have to do with memory. I think memory is such a cool thing to
Memory
play
is
around
really
with.
cool. It's scary, dude.
It is scary because what are we if not our memories?
Yeah,
What
we're
we remember.
just a bundle of memories that are just like seeping into some sort of forgetfulness ooze over
Yeah.
time. You know?
Yeah. What if it was kind of a semi horror mystery, which I think that naturally has to be. What if it was something that the family or certain members of the family made a deal at some point where they had to forget this kid to gain something, to get something, and then they start to rediscover the kid. They like find the old photo album. That dude,
Okay.
that you know how creepy that would be if you had a family of four, and then you're
And you're
like,
like,
"What's this
oh,
old family album?" And then
you
you
flip over the
open,
picture and it's like, their names and their ages.
yeah, and there's like a family of five, and there's just a
Mm-hmm.
random kid and everyone's like, "Who's that kid?"
That is pretty spooky.
That is spooky. Are you liking this train? Or we want to go spooky?
I am liking that. Part of me thinks, I'm trying to get out of the prison. I'm trying to,
Oh yeah, we gotta
uh,
go. We gotta make it
I
crazy.
know, I know the visual here. Thumbnail. The idea that it really could be that you slid into an alternate universe where you don't exist, where everything else is
Oh.
the same. So that's some other aspect where it's like, oh, they just don't remember. And we could kind of we end up doing like a in the spirit of the prompt
Yes.
type territory. And the spirit of the prompt would be like, the alternate dimension thing. It doesn't have to be a sibling necessarily. You could say it's, the president or somebody. I'm trying to just pull a very like a celebrity of some kind slides into a different universe where they don't exist, and they're like, oh man.
I actually, you bring this up, but I had the thought that was very similar to this. Kind of eerie that you're bringing this up because we were at a restaurant this last weekend and it had an open kitchen with just all, the kind of quick move in cooks, moving everything,
Oh
making
yeah.
seafood and stuff like that. And I just had this thought, and I mentioned it to Kelsey. I was just thinking, what if there was an alternate world where Ed Sheeran just never made his big break and he was just working in this kitchen? And then you met him and you're like, hey, I know you. And he's like, you don't know me. And then you're like listing off songs that he has played, but no one has heard. And he's like, how do you know that? No,
That feels like Yesterday, the Beatles movie.
Yeah, it is
he's
like
in that too.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Oh, actually,
just writing Yesterday, dude.
I'm just watching Yesterday.
Dude, you suck.
But the
this
difference
isn't real Tommy.
This isn't. Yeah, this is a fake me. But the twist of that is, I think it's from. He doesn't go and talk to the Beatles to like try to tell them, hey, you used to be famous.
Yeah, he takes their songs, obviously.
He just steals their songs. It's as if someone just saw Ed Sheeran as a cook. He's like, I'm going to play his music instead. But yeah, I feel like we're getting, I think getting in the celebrity territory might just be too, I think we just need it to just be a normal person. And I feel like is this alternate world they fall into is the only difference that they don't exist, or is there more to it than that?
I would think that it would just be that they don't exist, because that's the really eerie part, is that, well, it's actually kind of hurtful, where they're like, I don't exist and everything is the exact same way. Even their lives
Except
are
everything's better. Yeah, everything's better.
Yeah, because that's the Scrooge thing is like showing, oh, if you didn't exist, hey, this guy wouldn't have, Tiny Tim wouldn't have this whatever. Although I don't know the Scrooge story that well, apparently, but that kind of thing, like the ghost of Christmas past comes and tells you like, hey, you should just kill yourself. Life would be way better without you, dude.
Yeah,
because that's like, all that tells you.
Yeah, that is kind of what the story is, where he's like, there's got to be someone who's impacted by me not being here.
And it's like some homeless guy, and he's like, there was one guy I knew I could feel better than by seeing that guy. I didn't have it as bad as that guy.
Merry Christmas, one and all.
And he's like, I know my place. I'm at the bottom of the ladder. And that's his thing.
Okay, so
no, I do think leaning into the horror thing. We talked about trying to nail a horror last time, or a couple times ago, and
yeah,
I think leaning into that kind of, I think Stephen King has said it, where it's like horror is like the grotesque thing, Jaws biting Quint in half at the end is her kind of horrific, but also, a tentacle monster or something. But terror is like coming home and finding like one thing is off.
Yeah.
Or one thing has been replaced by an exact replica.
Yeah. I think that works better if we're in the perspective of the family rather than the person who is forgotten.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Because that is, dude, it's spooky to me of thinking it's one of their kids that they can't remember that is like kind of disappeared into the shadows.
Well, I feel like full horror would be you go on family vacation. It's a little like we take Home Alone and we like crank it hard into the supernatural type stuff. And it's like, kind of, you brought up Doctor Who, but what are they called? The angel things.
The Weeping Angels?
Yes, the Weeping Angels, where if you look at them, you don't blink. They're statues, but as soon as you blink, they can move again and they move real fast or whatever. Like that kind of thing where it's like, and there's a little bit of SCP. Do you know what that is?
No.
I think it's secure, contain. I can't remember the P, but it was an online archive of like a bunch of pretend cryptid type things of like pretend governmental redacted documents and stuff. And it feels like that, where it's like, there was one creature in there, I can't remember which one it is, that if you were looking at it, it couldn't move. And so they kept it under surveillance all the time. And like it took two people to clean its cage at all times. And the one guy's job was just to look.
Yeah. I like that kind of stuff. That makes, I don't know if you're a Doctor Who guy, but I'll say this because anyone
my wife
listening
is a Doctor Who girl, or Whovian.
A Whovian. Do you know about the silence? Because they're another thing that involves looking at
yes. them. Yeah. That's what I was thinking of. That like when you're not looking at them, they're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Right?
You forget them if you're not actively looking at them. But then you remember them when you see them again. But then when you don't look at them, you forget they exist.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So when you say family vacation, the family goes away on vacation?
Yeah, they're like at a beach house,
Okay. And that's where all the stuff starts happening?
Yeah, I think they start to think that there's like a ghost in the house or whatever, and it turns out that it's actually a child, that whatever has happened. And we could maybe push it into some sort of elevated horror thing where I don't know. I'm not there yet, but
we'll get there. Don't worry, we'll get there.
The issue I see with it already, though, is the stakes are low. Why would I look for a child that I don't know exists?
Yep. Okay. I get that.
So like they wouldn't have the parental like desire. It would just be mystery. It would have to be the latter half of the movie would be devoted to like, oh, my baby. Like something happened and now I'm like, my baby's gone.
Yeah, I think we would need to. So hear me out here. What if we created something that triggers let's call it the ghost for now.
Sure.
Something triggers the ghost to start appearing. Maybe it's because it's completely out of their mind. The ghost is not able to do anything. But when someone finds it's like their old vacation house and they go and they find the kids find something in the attic and they're like, who's this other kid in the photo? And then once there's like the little bit of presence, then the ghost can start interacting with them. And
okay,
I was thinking, I don't know if we want to throw one of the parents under the bus, but we could make it where the dad is aware of the situation or something, and he somehow stole the family's memories because.
Oh, I got it.
All right.
They're not a family.
Okay.
That's what they realize at the end. Is that was just some other kid in some sort of experiment. That this whole thing, like they've all been brain wiped basically, and like, oh, you're on family vacation, and you come to find at the end that it's like the second act break or third act or whatever. It's like that this isn't dad, this isn't mom. I have a real family that exists somewhere else.
They're strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is the ghost real, or is this all just a
I think the ghost is
thing?
real. It's probably a kid who got out, that like got out of whatever simulation type thing that they're in, and is, rattling around between the walls, so to speak.
That is interesting. That
or
is
even
a
a kid from a
full.
leftover family. Like they did the experiment before and now they're doing it again. And you know what I mean? Like he might be, he's gone at this point, been totally disposed of, but they come to find that at the end.
Okay. Okay. What if you're making some gears turn in my head right now, because that's a interesting genre change where you think you're watching a horror movie for the longest time,
Mm-hmm.
for maybe half the movie.
Like it's supernatural, but it actually ends up
Yeah.
being.
But then it's sci-fi instead.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you wanted to say that they're in a full simulation, I really like the idea of this kid, the ghost, is actually, when you say it's a kid that got out, he's in whatever the equivalent is of the air ducts of the
Yeah,
simulation.
no,
Like
yeah, totally.
he's like a live kid, and he is just like escaped, and they can't pin him down and can't find him, but he's trying to help this family that's in there.
Yeah.
But to them, he just is kind of this like weird transparent thing because he's not supposed to be there.
Yes.
But then he's trying to help them out and and maybe even a mutual thing. Like he wants to help them so he can be helped and get out too.
Ooh, I'm thinking of some cool stuff.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, no, I mean it's for later. Once we get it more developed. If it keeps going in this direction,
You're like,
I don't want to.
It's just for me. It's just cool stuff.
Oh, I just wanted to think it
in my
It's
head.
just cool for me to think about. Let me think about it again. Okay, yeah, that's cool.
Man, it seems so cool. What you think about seems
not.
so cool.
It's not cool in the way that I'll tell you what it is, but it's not cool in the way that it's like pushing the narrative necessarily. But if you deal with the idea that it's a simulation of some kind, I like the idea of it being designed to kind of test the family, like the family as a unit.
Okay.
And like, can you make a family out of people who aren't really related?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, I know that's like obvious, you can adopt people or whatever, but I just, you're really, it's like they're doing experiments on the family unit, and no family would just agree to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide to make families by using certain people. And maybe the dad is like a convict, like all these things, and they have memories of whatever's happening. But actually, that's kind of interesting and kind of scary, is that the dad starts to remember who he is. And he's like not a good guy.
Yeah, man. It gets heavier and heavier. This is a weird story, but I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
So I'll get it even weirder. And I know we talked off mic about things that we don't want to bring up. Trying to the ground rules, so to speak. But there's this moment where the dad and the daughter realize that they're not related. Or like maybe the dad realizes he's not related to the daughter and he's like a bad guy. You kind of get what I'm getting at?
Yeah. How old are you thinking these kids are? Are they more like teenage? Like near
I think
adults?
the daughter would be older. The dad, I think, is probably 40, or maybe 45. And then the daughter could be, 17, 18. I think a son being like 11. I always love giving kids, like putting kids somewhere, because kids and old people, they can't fight back. And so it's like, it's an automatic kind of stake raiser, so to speak, that you put them in a situation where like strength is what's needed and they don't have it. Anyway,
my only hesitancy with that is trying to find out who are we rooting for, because it almost feels like we're supposed to be rooting for the family and this ghost kid to overcome this situation they're in and
that's true,
escape. So I feel like if we turn the family too much in on itself, then we kind of get lost on who do we root for? Who's our protagonist?
Yeah, I do think it's the family. Like it's almost this, in a very broad sense, they're a family. They start off being really tight knit. They have fake shared memories of things. And then that dissolves, and then they come back together to help each other out.
Yeah, I think
that's a good kind of hopeful thing where you could still root for them, even if the dad goes nuts or whatever. Although I'm not a fan of the dad going nuts.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he can be like a convict, or maybe like just a bad dude, or he murdered someone or something like that, where he kind of because I think that's interesting if you bring him back. I think if we go as heavy as you were suggesting earlier, it's hard to bring him back into the fold.
Yeah,
But
that's
if
true.
he's just a bad guy and he's just like, we're not even a family. Like,
Yeah.
why do I care? It's like, because earlier you thought we were a family and you
Yeah.
cared about what happened to us. And I don't know. That's a cool turning point of him realizing that he's scum and this low view of himself. But then these people who don't even know him rooting
Yeah.
for him, saying, "We got a lot. Like we could be a family."
Oh,
I think
totally.
that could bring, because then I like this whole, like, it's a family, happy family. That's wild that it would start with happy family that eventually start to realize they don't even know who they are. Like they don't know who
Yes.
the other people
Well, I think
are.
the dad definitely struggles again. Like you said, he's starting to have memories. Like the reality is starting to come in. I think what it is that these are people, especially the dad. I can understand him being a convict. That it's like it was either this or the death penalty, or I thought they were injecting me with the
Mm,
death penalty. They actually were putting me under and like wiping my memory.
hmm
And now I'm going into this thing, and maybe the kids are like kids who died on the table or something. Like it's people who could go away really easily, or even just somebody that like they straight up kidnapped. But people that folks wouldn't miss, and can they kind of become a family? That kind of outsider thing. But I really like the dad being like having gotten the death penalty.
I think that's cool. I think that's
I feel like I've heard of that before though.
what where he gets the
Like
death
somebody
penalty and
getting the
then
death penalty and then they wake up and it's like, oh, now I'm a hitman, and then they're like, oh, we own you. I don't know. If you're listening and you know what it is, shoot us a message because I don't know. I'll avoid that to some degree. I think it could just be that it's a like you want a fresh start, sign up for this thing. Like if you're a prisoner, or if you want to do medical trials or whatever. Like maybe the daughter is college age and she signed up for a medical trial, and it was
Mhm,
really just a scheme to get people. But also, I kind of like the idea of not really knowing what the people like the program is.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, it'd be cool.
that's scary.
I keep having these visions of, we see this Jason Bourne-esque office with all the monitors and we see people
Hmm.
studying them, but I think it's scary if we don't ever see them. Because if we don't ever see them, you know what I'm saying? If we
Oh
don't
yeah,
ever see
totally.
them, then
I would even
it's
say we just don't ever cut to that angle. Like
mhm.
we never see that aspect of it. It's just from the family's perspective the whole time. I think that makes it really creepy.
Yeah, and maybe
Um,
they discover some cameras or something
yeah,
in
they can
the
break into a
house.
room as long as it's their perspective,
Yeah,
as opposed because even then you could pull out at the end if you wanted to. I wouldn't do this because it's kind of lame, but like you pull out one more time and it's like that was the experiment. That you found out that it was an experiment. It's like
it,
okay,
they're like, you're on candid camera.
yeah,
And she said,
yeah,
they're like,
smile.
it's
Uh,
just a game show, and they're like, I'm traumatized.
yeah, yeah. That's actually an interesting idea that it would be a game show that it's like we wipe your memory and
Yeah, I think we would have to be in that world to establish that. Like you couldn't do that at the end. I think it would be too wacky, you know?
I think
Like then it just
your
be
setups just have to be that good where you set up like on the TV this thing and then your callback has to be that good. Like when you
mhm.
were rushing all that information at them. I don't know. I kind of like that turn where it's like you bust in and it's a studio audience and they're like, oh, I don't know. I think that's like effed up. Uh,
That's yeah.
in like one of the best ways possible where you're just like covered in blood and it's like the mom or whatever and she's just like oh I don't know. I think the game show thing it's vibing with me, man.
Yeah, I will
You
I'm not
said
against
game
the game
show,
show.
dude.
I'm
Family
not
Feud.
I'm
Family
I'm not
Feud.
I'm not listen to me. I'm not doing a game show. No, I'm kidding.
I told you off mic.
I said no game shows. That's the one rule of StoryFellas.
Come on, man. The Game Show Network. But yeah, I think
I
it's maybe a little
yeah,
obvious.
no, I'm good. If we can earn that and get there, there's a few things I want to iron out. Going back, I think it opens beautiful beach house, maybe up on the hill, and then you see the waves down below, and the family comes up, and it's very just classic American family. Just hey,
Yeah.
help your dad with a thing. And it's just they're very chummy and peaceful and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need, so here's a few of the holes that we need to fill. Because I think if they have like this active level of, like, what does the memory wipe look like? Because I was thinking maybe this third kid was with them, was supposed to be in the simulation with them, but somehow broke out midway and they had to do a hard reset. So all the four of them reset. But I don't know if I want them to have that much control over the memories. That feels a little overpowered.
That does. That feels like I'm in the Matrix and you can control me. They have bodily, freedom.
Yeah.
Like they can move around. I like the idea of them finding like something under their skin. That feels like you've seen that a billion times before, though, where it's like, oh, what is that? Oh, it's a serial number.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But then, or the ghost kid can be not part of the experiment, and maybe he's part of the people trying to figure out how he's tied with the people, because clearly he escapes, or he's part of the people doing the experiment who feels bad, who's sneaking in to try to let them get them out.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So it's like a mole kind of guy. I like the idea that he's a leftover kid, because I don't feel like they would be able to, that he could hide that long from these people if it's just a few air ducts or something like that. If in their time, however it works, it's like the family's perspective, it's going on for a couple of days, a 7-day stretch or whatever. They show up as a family, and is it more interesting for them to forget in real time someone?
They forget what in real time?
Like forget a sibling. You start the story with them, with the kid, the third kid, and then we just delete him. And it's like one of the family members remembers him. And that's kind of the experiment, is like, what happens when you have one person give them the truth, essentially, and then the rest of the people don't. And it's like, what is their reaction to this person who has the truth? I flipped it totally on its head, obviously, but just saying, like, we still are deleting a kid.
Yeah.
But now we have like a clear protagonist as the person who remembers, and we as the audience remember them too.
Yeah, I feel like, so then they're the protagonist, and then the family's kind of another antagonist.
Yeah, it's like the little boy. It's like an 11-year-old boy, and he remembers that he has a sister.
Oh wait,
like, no, you don't.
Okay, so wait, this is, I don't know. I think I'm getting lost in how many kids there are.
I know, we're flipping it. So let's name our family. I know we kind of always get to this point, and
Rick is the dad.
All right, Rick's the dad.
Rick is also the mom.
Oh, okay. No. All right.
They're all
we accidentally
Rick.
gave you all the same name. No, I say Quinn.
Quinn. Okay.
Quinn is the mom. Yeah.
What can we name the little boy Dexter?
No. Hey, Dexter. I mean, honestly,
what about Dax?
Dax?
It's
too video gamey.
What about Shepard?
Okay.
Shepard could be a name.
What about Mario?
What about Luigi?
Yeah.
Okay, we got Quinn, we got Rick, we got the two parents. Are we thinking like a girl and a guy for the children?
I feel like that's a good dynamic spread. We could play with it in terms of the trope is usually, daughter, son. And so we could play with it and have like two daughters. That's kind of interesting, because then like the dad is really the only like brute force physical one.
I think that's cool. And then the ghost boy can be a boy, because that could be an interesting dynamic with him, because I imagine he would meet the daughters first and try to communicate with them.
I actually see it being really scary. You play it like a horror film in the first 2 acts, almost like or 1.5 acts, and it's like the little boy's like standing at the end of the bed and is like a ghost essentially, and the girls are just like, I'm scared out of my mind.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So okay, Rick and Quinn and
Lily. Could Lily be one of the girls?
Sure.
Lily and
maybe they're not twins. They're just like a sister and older sister. Okay.
Yeah, I think kind of teenage, maybe 17-year-old sister and 12-year-old sister, maybe 14.
That's fine.
Or we can make them little if you want.
That's good. I think Casey for the teenager
Okay,
or the older one.
Casey and Lily.
Yeah.
Okay, teenager and then kind of more of a kiddish kid.
Yeah.
All right. So let me say Rick, Quinn, Casey, Lily.
Yes.
And then we have Ghost Boy.
Yeah, yeah. Ghost Boy. I mean, he can. I don't know if she knows his name. I guess she would have to, to make it a little bit more meaningful. Where it's like, where's this guy? Like, where is this kid's name?
Yeah. So Lily they're at this vacation. They're exploring the house, Jumanji style,
Mm-hmm.
and then they kind of start catching glimpses of this boy, or Lily does. I think it makes sense for Lily to be the first one to be like, I think there was a boy in the yard. And like she looked out the window and there was like this boy and then he disappeared. They're like, there's no boy out there. And then more instances like that and maybe weird stuff happens in the house. It's full on, you just think it's a horror movie.
Yes.
It just is set up like a horror movie. And then eventually the boy's like trying to talk to them. He's like, but he's like, is like
he
broken.
He leave messages too,
He's like, it's like very echoey. And it's like,
how old is the boy? Because
I think I was thinking 15, younger than a teenage girl, but older than Lily.
Adequate enough to be able to run and hide and think.
Yeah. I was thinking like 14 or 15 or something.
Okay.
And then he has this kind of he's like, I have something to tell you. And it's just like, and then he keeps like disappearing and stuff. And I don't know if he just gets better at it or something solidifies him.
That's a good question, because I do think it goes back to like, okay, is he in a separate room to them? Like if just for us as the writers knowing, okay, they're in some sort of electronic matrix style thing, like their minds are plugged in somewhere, or they literally are in a beach house. Because it would be weird for him to be like echoey and be able to go in and out if it wasn't some sort of digital landscape. Moving my camera.
Yeah, I picture them not plugged in. It's not like a brain in a vat kind of thing. We could go that route, but I think it's more they're actually there, but maybe the thing that they're interacting with is not. I keep thinking of I think there's a Rick and Morty episode where they're in a hologram. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. But it's like you love your Rick and Morty.
They have clever ideas, but they basically are this like physical representation of the hologram that's like on a gigantic treadmill. So like as they walk, they're like physically there, but then everything around them is projected and fake. And I picture something like that where it's not all in their head. They're physically there, but they're still trapped in this thing. If we were going to go, I know this is more the end. The game show thing is the end if we decide to land on that. But you kind of hinted at, they get there and they're all bloodied and all of this. What is the threat happening that's actually happening to the family?
I think there would have to be some like government dudes or program guys that show up that are like, we're here to clean up. This operation has gone off the rails.
So is the operation clearly, because I still like the idea of us never seeing the people.
Same. Well, maybe in that way it could be monsters of some kind. Like they're just a representation. Because if you break in at the end and it's the game show thing, it's like those are real people that are watching you, and that's scary enough that these people would be watching you the whole time. In front of a live studio audience, that they could be real people, but as the family perceives them, they are monsters. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like they are wearing a digital disguise of like, oh, we're just this big tentacle monster thing that shows up every once in a while, or like mutants or whatever. I think that's kind of cool. Like Hills Have Eyes style. Like they're just nightmare fuel. And they're just meant to be that way.
I think that's interesting. So they're just really they're testing this family in all sorts of weird ways of just like, how do they handle trauma? How do they handle these monsters attacking? So at some point, the ghost boy needs to break through and tell them what's going on. And maybe that is what starts to resurface their memories.
the ghost boy literally ran away. Like he was able to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But you ever seen The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No, I have not.
So it's a game show that's
Okay.
in the future that convicts are put in, and they are like these champions that come and kill the convicts. And so those are that's the reason why people watch, is that they have like this guy named Sub-Zero, which was before Mortal Kombat, or like right at the same time. He's like a sumo wrestler, ice skater dude, like hockey player guy that had like a razor hockey stick. There was I'm trying to think of the other ones. There's a chainsaw guy. I can't remember his name, but he's on like a motorcycle. They all have their kind of gimmick of killing the convicts. And you have to kind of get through it. But at one point, there are rebels that come in and break the game, and they pull Arnold Schwarzenegger out.
Is Arnold Schwarzenegger a convict in this?
Yeah.
Nice.
Not I think it's innocent. I thought about doing an Arnold for an episode, and there it is.
There it is. It's not bad. I like it.
But yeah, so that idea that the ghost boy is really just like a ghost signal that's being pushed into the game and interrupting whatever signal they have, so he can kind of send a message to them, kind of like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, a hologram, even though they are real.
Yeah.
It's like interfering with.
Yeah, like people interpret it. They see him, and we're living in a time of Apple Vision Pros and stuff.
Yes.
So I could see maybe it's some techie kid who somehow works for someone, and so he's somewhere like plugged in with his goggles or whatever, and he's manifesting a digital version of him somewhere in this world. But he's not super good at it, so it's all broken.
I like that a lot. I think kind of, again, cutting ourselves off from the prompt a little bit here, not making it a sibling, because that's restricting the age hardcore, where it's starting to kind of top us off. Whereas if it was like, oh, I see grandpa's ghost, and it's like, your grandpa's still alive. And they keep telling him that. They keep telling the kids that. And it's like, there's an old man who's talking to them.
Okay. But when they say it's grandpa's ghost, do they actually recognize him, or is that just, are they just
no, I think it's just the little girl saying it, like, oh, I'm seeing an old man. Like, I think I'm seeing grandpa's ghost or whatever. And we can make her little enough to kind of not really know. Yeah, I like that.
Okay. And then this guy is a bit older, and
then he could be like the head of the rebellion, the head of the like underground people who are like trying to stop this barbaric game from happening. And, he looks like a ghost to them because he's, interrupting their signal or whatever. That way it has a little bit more weight to it, where, okay, so we have the head of the rebellion doing it. It's not just, and they could send in the mutants to like try and find him too. I don't know. I think that's kind of cool.
I think that's cool. I think
it's a little less like, oh, my sibling that was here that is not here. So that fundamentally changes the idea.
No, I think that's still, again, these prompts, very rarely do we stick to the exact prompt. We tend to jump and change things quite drastically. Have you seen Ex Machina?
Yeah.
The scene, there's a scene where,
I'm going to tear up the dance floor.
Yeah, but dude, that floor
it's scene so good. It makes the movie, in my opinion.
It's so uncomfortable.
He somehow pulled it off. Yeah. I don't know how you tonally do something like that. For those who haven't seen it, go watch it. But yeah, it's really good. Yeah,
that dance scene is really good at being uncomfortable intentionally. But anyway, there's a scene, there's a AI robot, and there's the guy who's coming to visit it. And it all seems nice and dandy. And then the power goes out, like the power will flicker. And then in the moments that the power is flickering and the surveillance is down, like she's like, I need to tell you something. And then like she has to act normal back when the power comes back on. And I think something like that is cool. If there's cool. like a surge, and like there's like this, like vroom, the house goes dead. And then the ghost is like, I don't have a lot. I've got 2 minutes and I need to tell you something. And when the lights come back on, it's important that you still pretend like you're a family. And they're like, what are you talking about? And they may be like, I don't know if he does something to trip their memories or just him telling them it starts to jog their memories. But I like that idea of that pressure of hey, you have to pretend like nothing happened or they're
I
going to
like
catch
that. And that
on.
could be really scary. Have you ever seen the film Lights Out? It was based on a horror
Uh,
short.
I know I've seen the horror short, but
Okay, perfect. Then the
I have
idea of
not
turning
seen the
out the
movie.
lights and you see, like, you could see the outline of the thing, and you
Yeah.
turn on the lights and it's gone.
Hmm.
So they're like in the living room and they're like playing Scrabble, and it's like ha 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 ha, and it's at night, whatever.
Yeah.
Dad's cracked open a beer. They're on the beach, or they're in a beach house, so there's like
Yeah.
not a lot of light. It's nice looking, and then
Hmm.
and like in the moonlight, you can see this guy just standing there, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Wow, who's that? He wasn't there." Whatever. And he's just like, "I need you to be calm.
Hmm.
I only have 30 seconds."
Hmm.
And maybe it starts with like one character. I think that's probably the best thing as opposed to all of them.
Hmm.
Like it starts with the mom,
Yeah.
and the mom is like, "Whoa, we know," and then the dad comes in. And he's like, the grandpa says, like, he's not going to know who you are when I come in,
Hmm.
uh, and he doesn't get enough time to like say what he wants. He gets cut off.
Hmm.
Um, but I want him to say something like, there's something, up. I'm trying to think about where they would have put it, but like some sort of damper thing that they would have inserted in their body. And he's like,
Hmm.
check behind your ear.
Hmm. Mm. I like that.
And so he's only able to get off like that one little bit of information. And then he kind of appears creepily to the girl, or to the girls. And the dad is really suspicious, um, and he's got a violent streak because he was
Hmm.
a violent criminal.
Hmm.
And we can maybe even see that a little bit when they're driving in, and the dad gets like cut off and he kind of losing it a little bit.
Hmm.
And I also like the idea that the dad's tattoos start showing more as it goes on.
Mm. Oh,
Like it,
like they're being covered up by the
yeah,
simulation.
yeah,
I think that's cool. I like this a lot. I think this is the hook of this like strange visitor that no one seems to
yeah,
be able to pin down or remember, and sneaking them little tidbits about, oh, check behind your ear. This is whatever this is about to happen. Um, and maybe we make certain members of the family, maybe we can still have our kicking it too. Maybe the father does become more and more of a bad guy as this
hmm.
progresses, and then
I like the double turn though, that he becomes a bad guy, but once his full memory is there, he understands what he's got to do. He's
mhm,
like, I don't want to, like they already put me down once or whatever.
mhm,
But I also like that maybe they can only see him in reflections.
mm, that's
So
cool.
giving it like a solid rule, you
Hmm.
know, that way it's again very ghost like,
Yeah.
but it has something to do with the way reflections are programmed.
Oh, yeah. I like that. I like that. That's like a technical thing where it
Yeah,
glitches out, and that's how we can sneak through.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and he's interfering with this thing. He's breaking down the power every once in a while so he can sneak messages in. And he keeps saying it's imperative that you keep acting normal, but you can also do these things and try to gain your memories back. But you have to be really subtle about it because he keeps referring. He's like, they're watching. And
mm-hmm.
then he's like, well, who's watching? I think that's really cool. And then they start remembering, or maybe there's a point where people, it's like, you guys can talk like at the, if it's after between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. you guys can talk or something. Like there's a point where people are not watching.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, I that makes me think of another podcast that I listened to in the past, which I think I've talked to you about this, but it was really cool and suspenseful because it's all disguised as like these informative tapes for
Oh, you
inmates.
told me about this. Yeah.
Yeah, but then like it's like there's messages hidden in the tapes. So then it's
Mm.
just like it's like imagine your body is floating through the hallway and you see the camera in the top left corner. The cameraman is on break from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. And it's just like there's like little like
Yeah.
and then it keeps moving and it's like trying to tell you something.
Oh yeah.
Because I think there would be need to be an opportunity for the family to talk and discuss. So past these power outages, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think maybe even going down to the ocean, that being able to do
Oh,
something.
oh, talk by the ocean. I think that's kind of cool because the waves would be loud
Yeah.
enough. Maybe it's like they can't hear you by the ocean. Then
Yeah.
maybe
Or
that's one of
maybe
his cryptic messages.
yeah.
He's like they can't hear you by the ocean.
hard to
and
hear
that
by the ocean.
it's hard to it's hard to hear by the ocean. And
I
then
like the idea that he wrote a message on the sand too. So like when they get there, not like
mhm,
a full thing, but like maybe one night.
mhm.
I know the movie from his perspective would be pretty stupid though. I think where he's just out there like, I'm going to write behind your ear in sand. And then the high tide is going to, I just didn't know the tides, um, but something, like he left a note in the guest book,
Mhm,
that kind of thing. Um, Nailing down his appearances would be difficult. But I do think the mirror thing is kind of cool.
mhm.
That reminds me of something where it was like, oh, they forgot to program reflections. Oh, what was it? And it
You're
was
not
like,
you're not
do you know
talking
what I'm
about like
talking about?
you're not talking like Free Guy, are you?
It is Free Guy. Yeah, with the Venetian blinds or whatever. And it's like you could see it like reflected across the street.
It wasn't that they forgot to take out reflections. So it's like the thing that
Yeah.
they hid in the game was visible if you saw something
In the
reflective.
reflection. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
I think that's cool.
a little too close if we're going like simulation or
Let's
whatever.
hire Ryan Reynolds and he
Yeah,
can be
he
the
would make the
guy.
idea very good. Like I said, I do think we have a lot of world building things which are
Yeah.
cool, and I think we have enough of a plot. Like obviously, it's a mystery. They start to like distrust each other. The dad like hits the mom, I
Mhm.
think, and he has like a face tattoo that comes on after that, and it's like he doesn't realize it, but the youngest daughter's like, "Who drew on your face?"
Mhm.
And he's like trying to wipe it off. I think
Hmm.
that's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. I want do they all make it out or do they all just discover it's a game show? Like how do we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, okay,
Because
because
that's going to help me. I've got some ideas of how we could lead up
yeah.
to the end, but I need to know what the end is.
I do think that they get out. And especially if we go with like the Rebel Underground, I think it has a lot to do with once they realize who they really are, do they want anything to do with each other? That's if they survive.
Hmm.
I think it's easiest to kill the dad off.
Hmm. I think he
Well,
can sacrifice himself if
I
he.
think he would sacrifice himself. That seems pretty obvious, though. So I kind of like the idea of keeping him around. He's very interesting.
Hmm.
And like even he has the most developed background where we know where he's coming from. Like where
Hmm.
does the wife come from? What is her story? I think killing her off could be a different take.
Hmm.
Depending on what her story is. Like, okay, he was a killer beforehand, so him laying down his life that makes sense.
Hmm.
That thematically is like a payoff at the end.
Hmm.
Him once he realizes who he is, choosing to lay down his life. That's what matters, not him doing it without his memory.
Hmm.
Um, and his like realization plays out symbolically with his tattoos coming back in. Are there other things that we could do like that where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this daughter, you know um was a or maybe is a cancer patient or something like that, and signed up to be on the show, or maybe the mom signed up to be on the show to help pay for the medical bills for her own actual child.
Hmm. I thought you were just going to say that maybe the mom had cancer.
Yeah, I did at first, but then I realized it made more sense for her to have like a motivation that she's not sick. But also, that could play into who the kid is. Like the mom could start hallucinating about some kid that isn't there, and that's actually
Hmm.
her real kid.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting.
She's like has memories of this other child, this other little
Hmm.
boy, and she's like, "Oh no, I mean, I gotta, it's just they start coming in waves." She thinks it's dreams when it's really just her memories
Yeah.
of her real life.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's interesting. And then the kids can be, I don't know, like what the
It's a
little
little
girl.
Shining esque,
Hmm.
where you have them in kind of a remote location, and the game show would want the dad to go crazy. I think that's kind of what they put him there for. Like he's an axe murderer,
Mm.
and
But then the mom goes crazy instead.
yeah, I mean she's unstable regardless.
Yeah, I think
But she's
if
just like a normal person who decided to go on the show to help pay for something. So she's like incentivized by the money.
yeah, I think the show would be doing some sort of trials. Like there'd be weird stuff happening besides the old man. The old man's there to kind of illuminate the truth. But then the show, I think, would be creating weird things like crazy storm, a crazy
A sea monster.
storm. Yeah, a sea monster. I do think the idea of like humanoid something coming at the thing, because I imagine all of those cryptic messages. Oh, you got an idea?
I got an idea. It's about revealing your true nature
Mm-hmm.
and your true intentions.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea that, okay, the dad is this axe murderer. Could he, if you wiped his memory, would he choose the same kind of things?
Mm.
Would his
Okay.
nature come out? And so the show, as we understand it, puts things and has things happen to try and push him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they put them in a situation, and it's like, okay, that's why the dad and the daughter moment I was talking about earlier seemed to make a lot of sense to me, because it's like, okay, the show is pushing him. Like he is realizing it's like his true nature is coming out. I think that's really interesting, that if you were to wipe my memory, would I love my wife if I saw her?
Mm-hmm.
You know, probably not. Like, I mean, my love for her is built up on my memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's cool. I think that's kind of that makes it that's a good idea for the point of the show, to see, will they make the same choices? Will they do something else crazy? And I don't know if we want to.
It's a little Truman Show too.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit hesitant on the game show aspects still, just because I feel like we're really like the fact that this has to be done for entertainment purposes rather than just a scientific test.
Okay,
Makes it.
Yeah.
I do want it to happen, but I don't know if we're at the point of earning it yet, where I'm just sitting in a stand. I'm like, I wonder if the murderer guy's going to become a murderer again. Like, I don't know if it's that interesting unless we add more dynamics and stuff to the.
Well,
to
you
the
also
show.
have to understand like what the audience, like we, the audience, know versus what the audience in the game show would know. So they would tune in kind of like the Truman Show, just live streaming this situation. And there'd be something where it's like, oh, there's an axe murderer on this season. Oh, look at them kissing. She doesn't know that he's an axe murderer. And it's like certain things start to push them.
Okay.
You know, and she could be, I don't know, like it actually would be really interesting to like make the mom a nun or something like that, like in real life.
Oh, okay.
And so now it's like, that's a whole other complicated thing that we're just like, why would she have to do that? What is the role of Catholicism in this game show world?
So let me hit you with something. I don't know how to tie it to them discovering it's a game show yet, but I do like the idea of these cryptic messages from the old man. And the first one is like, he's like, this isn't, maybe they're really, really short. That he's just like, this isn't what you think it is. And like he blips out, like, that's the first one. And they're like, what was that? And it's like, what are you talking about? There was a guy there. And then it grows. It's like, check behind your ear, things like that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of at some point he leads the little girl or something. Or there's
I like him telling the little girl, the littlest girl, about check behind her ear. And so she's like in the bathroom and like cuts her ear. That little bit of body horror kind of thing. Like she's having to do it, like having the mirrors set up and everything. And her like older sister walks in and is like, what the F are you doing?
I don't think she's that.
She's not that valley girl, but you know what I mean? Like she comes in and she's like, what are you doing? And it's like, she was cutting herself. And it's like, no, I wasn't. And she has to kind of explain herself, even though the child, because like the child having to explain that she understands that the situation is not what it's supposed to be. Like that's very scary from like a kid's perspective, and from like an audience perspective too, that you give the person with least amount of power. So again, you have like a 9-10-year-old girl who's like cutting behind her ear. I like that a lot. And I like that a lot. Go ahead and clip that out. Clip that out of context for me. The dad being the axe murderer, and maybe they even have like profiled it to the point where it's like he killed girls. So they have him in like, he's the only guy in the house. That's just scary to me. And then the mom, I think maybe the cancer patient thing, that she has another kid that she loves. So that would give her some reason to kind of abandon the family that she was with, which I like. that like once it kind of reveals itself, she's just like, no, I don't know you. No, no. Like, and it's like, Mom, no. And all they're left with is like this axe murdering guy. I think that's kind of cool.
I think
like mom betrays them.
Yeah. And
or maybe mom's like, a double agent.
What do you mean she's a double agent? Oh, she's works for the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay. Here, let me finish my thought about the old man, because I think I've got some more things that I think at some point he has to have a slightly longer monologue explaining to whoever. It sounds like the girl, maybe the two girls might be the protagonists in this, because it sounds like the
alternatively mom. the teenager would be the mole. And she's like, Disney Channel does it where it's like you cast like a 25-year-old as an 18-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like at one point the axe murderer guy's like, you're just a child. And she's like, no, I'm not. It's like it totally does something that reveals that she's like really not.
That's kind of cool too. That it kind of leaves us with the little girl being the main protagonist in a sense.
I like that a lot, actually. Yeah.
And I was thinking, but it's trickier because then she's kind of on her own trying to understand the.
Well, she has the old man.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But she can't be like super little then. I think she needs to be like 11, like 8 12 or something.
Yeah, it's like sub 10 is like where you really, fantasy, I still believe in Santa. I like that idea that it's like he's almost an imaginary character who's helping her.
Mm-hmm.
But he's asking her to do really destructive things, like cut behind her ear. What? Mm-hmm. No, don't listen to that. And it's like, yeah, because what we as the writers need to be way ahead of the audience on revealing these things. And so it's like we are guiding them through these different genre moments where they're like, oh man, is she just making this up? Is it just whatever? You need to kind of keep that under wraps like for a long time. Like what is the grandpa? And then you need to have a really clear graduation through big moments that reveal things. Anyway, I think it's obvious, but also kind of just like you have to really choose the events in order correctly that you don't overstep it.
Yeah, I think if you introduce her and she's seeing this grandpa and then he's giving her these weird tips. I like the idea of some sort of, he gives her tips on how to trigger their memories, like where he says,
yes,
because like she's just being fed all this imaginary friend-esque stuff, and they're like, you're being crazy, and then he's like, at some point he's like, knock over the fruit bowl, and then she's like, and they're like reprimanding her, they're like, you're acting out of hand, and then she just like throws this fruit bowl across the floor. And something about the visual of that, like they're like, what are you, and like all three of them like kind of like dead, like for just momentarily, like that like visual like cues something in their brain, and they kind of like start to hesitate, and you get the sense of like, what's going on, like what is happening with everyone, which if you have the mole person, that might not work the same way, but maybe she's not there, maybe just the parents are there.
I think that's where it has to be really threaded perfectly, where these moments are perfectly crafted where the wrong person is never there.
The one thing and I want him to at some point kind of explain, like it's like kind of like check out, follow the seagull on the beach or something, and it like leads to like some kind of like tunnel or something, like she can kind of tell, but like maybe that's like that builds up to the escape, like that's how you got to get out. And I just love the idea of things are breaking bad. We are like at the climax here, whatever, the axe murderer is going crazy, the mom's going crazy, whatever, or the daughter is like, or the teenage daughter's shooting the dad. Yeah, it's all popping off, and then she sees the old man one last time, and she just sees him, and he just says, "Run." And then that's like she has to make her mad dash like out of there, and that's her like last chance.
I love that it's the big sister, little sister thing too, that the big sister is really the evil one. The mom betrays them because of her own self-interest that she realizes she has. The dad, you as the audience don't trust him because of his background. Like, and we'd have to reveal that in some way. Like very clearly where he's having like nightmares, that type of thing. Like, where you are getting the audience to put two and two together, where it's like, okay, this guy, again, the tattoos is a thing I keep going back to, but you could kind of have that. But that the sister is hunting the little girl at the end. Like,
dude, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's
When she was
scary.
like really nice to her the whole time, like she was, sisterly. And so, yeah, that's really what you're trying to get at with the initial prompt is like realizing that somebody isn't who they say they are. And that's ultimately, again, like I said, the theme is who am I? And is my true nature going to come out when you take away my ability to remember? Or you start to kind of seed it back in for entertainment purposes or whatever. Or maybe it's not entertainment. Maybe it's just, again, an experiment. It's
Yeah, I think all the stuff's popping off. I like the bad guy feeling bad about who he is, and maybe he talks down by the waves, and the little girl's like, "I still think you can be a good guy and something." And I guess the mom wigs out and has a nervous breakdown, and it's like a danger to herself and other people around. And the dad's like he comes back around and he's like, "I'm gonna be a good guy," and is like protecting the little girl. And then maybe that's when the teenager like just kills the dad.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, you guys are a little getting a little too close to the truth." And you kind of just discover that she's on the inside of whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
And then she goes after the little girl. She takes the little hint to the lighthouse to escape. And I don't know what exactly that looks like. If it's a tunnel underneath, or it's like, go turn on the light and it like breaks the simulation. What is this final thing? Because this is the final thing. If she escapes the big
the little
sister,
girl escapes. Yeah.
the little girl escapes somehow. She escapes the big sister, and then is it just an unknown thing? Do we want to establish the game? It does feel weird if she like the bright light turns on, and then there's just applauding people. They're like, "Yeah, you did it! You survived!"
Yeah.
Which is wild and crazy and would cause so much trauma. But like, is that where it ends at this point? They're like, "You've won." And
what did I win? It's like you won your memory back.
yeah, but then like we don't get an opportunity to tie in the old man unless he has a tie-in with his monologue earlier. If he has a longer monologue,
Well, I mean, it would be really creepy for it to be like, and they're doing their kind of final applause, and it's like, okay, out comes the mom, and they come take a bow, and it's like nobody died.
oh man, so it was just her.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
Holy
I don't know,
cow!
Maybe. But that's I could see getting the grandpa character just being like, and the you could kind of go full meta here at this point, and you would say like the wizard character or whatever you would say, the kind of Campbell-esque kind of characters where it's like, oh, the wise, the sage that guided her or whatever. That he would come out and be like, oh, hi, oh, great,
Yeah.
And yeah, you'd have to really tie it up pretty quickly about like why they chose this little girl, what is her business, and like what are they doing it?
It's just like her, just like a slow zoom of just her like traumatized face, and they're like handing her flowers and stuff, and she's just, and maybe that's the ending. Like it's kind of a sad ending.
That is a sad ending, especially if nobody died, because that means that all of this like stuff, the themes about your true self, it didn't matter. Like, and I don't like that really.
Yeah.
That we're setting all that up to just kind of pee on it, I think is a, it's cheap is what it is. It's cheap.
Yeah.
And I do think then we have to double back and do something with the old man, even though that's creepy and interesting. It's just a different type of movie that would need to be way ironed out.
Or maybe
he saves the girl, I would think. Like, and she has her memories restored somehow. I imagine her just like sitting on the beach, and it's like your memories will come in time, kind of thing.
Yeah. What if, I don't know if this works. I don't know if this were, or not what we just said, but what I'm about to say. If she goes to the lighthouse and the flash happens, and like some of this stuff happens, this weird game show, this just like over the top, overly saturated game show. And she's like overwhelmed, and they bring out some of the characters, not the old man. They don't bring him out, but he somehow earlier on in the movie establishes like when things seem their craziest, it's very important you do so and so. It's very important.
Okay.
It's very important you run through the green door or something like that. and then like she's like overwhelmed and like starts to cry, but then like she sees like in the distance off stage there's like a green door, and like that's a
Yeah.
second, it's like an illusion on top of an illusion. And then when she gets through that, like she just finds herself like on the beach by herself, and like and then the old man comes, is like, hey, you did so good, like you did great, and like he like picks her up and carries her,
Hmm.
and something like that. I feel like would
That's
be good.
interesting.
It doesn't like wrap up
I wouldn't
everything
even
yet.
want to, I wouldn't even want that type of ending. I wouldn't want to even telegraph what it really meant.
Mm-hmm.
Like to literally, I wouldn't want to just sit here and be like, okay, so this is the old man is this, and the life in the beach house is this, and then the
Mm-hmm.
time in the studio is this whole thing. That if you wanted to go that route where it's like it becomes more dreamlike at the end, and she ends up just like sitting with the old man on the beach, which I like. I like that image a lot, and I really
Mm-hmm.
like the line of like your memories will come in time,
Yeah, I like
um,
that.
or your memories aren't allowed here, which I feel like is a line from something.
Your memories
Um,
aren't allowed here.
yeah, let's see.
I like it. I like the bones of this story. I'm not a big horror guy, which is funny because maybe this story will keep me awake when I go to bed tonight because I don't like that kind of stuff. But I do think this story is interesting and engaging and very weird in a way that you wouldn't expect in a normal classic horror story. You would just think this guy's a
Oh yeah.
ghost and he's haunting the house, and then there's this weird experiment being done. I like the image of if they're sitting on the beach, the this hill that the house was on overlooking the
Mm-hmm.
beach. Like she looks up and there's no house there. Like it's the hill is there, but the house never
Okay.
actually existed. I think that's kind of cool. And yeah, I feel like it could end kind of abstract
Yeah.
like that.
It could end abstract like that. I do want to give our audience a satisfactory, like, because that's, I feel like enough of a different one that you'd have to set it up differently. But having like the teenage girl try and kill her, be a member of whatever it is,
Hmm.
I think you'd have to kind of stick the landing on that kind of the program, the operation. You don't. Let's cut the game show thing. Maybe it is an experiment,
Hmm.
and she just like tumbles out of like a back alley. Or
Mm.
even the old man tells her, like, it's not a lighthouse. It's you have to go out into the ocean.
Mm.
And
Mm.
you have to swim and you have to like drown, basically.
Or you
Uh,
just keep swimming. That's a little Truman Show esque
well,
too.
that is, yeah. Well,
Go to
no,
the edge.
because the whole thing is like going under the waves. Because I do think that the thematically what we're at now is that your true self is revealed through pain and struggling
Hmm.
and self destruction, even like
Hmm.
by destroying the self, the flesh, if you want to use
Hmm.
biblical terms, this kind of bent, nasty golem attitude, that ultimately this little girl, her salvation is through the ocean, and so then she comes out the other side, and it's like a sewer pipe or something somewhere that he
Mm.
knew that there would be like a thing, and so he gets picked up by the old man, and it's like he has a blanket over at the end, and I remember what the quote is for. The quote that I was thinking is, "Your memories aren't invited," which is from The Master, Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master, which has a lot of
Mm.
beach themes and water themes as well, which it has to do with memory and memory holes and whatever.
Mm.
Very Scientology adjacent.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
those are
Well,
common themes, though, like common symbols. The ocean being, where like dark things are hidden.
I think it sounds cool, man.
Yeah.
I think we need to get to the point where we wrap it with a bow. But I like the skeleton of this. I think it's interesting. I think obviously some of these endings can be made more satisfactory with little nuggets throughout the way,
Yeah.
as someone was properly writing this. But it's kind of wild. I think it would be a scary thing to watch of
Oh
trying to
yeah.
just piece together what in the world is happening.
Agreed.
I have a few potential titles, but I also am curious if you've got some few.
Yeah, I have one, and it's pretty simple because we're gonna do a little Malcolm in the Middle here. You go the whole series Malcolm in the Middle without knowing their last name,
Hmm.
and we kind of went this whole time without talking about these people's last names. So I think it would be whatever their name as a family is, because that's the biggest illusion
Hmm.
is, and that's what's coming tumbling down. Or if we wanted to um, be a little bit more opaque or like mysterious, it would be like the Green Door or something.
Yeah,
Um,
I was thinking. Part of me really liked just the show, but if we don't establish that it's a show, then that doesn't really work. But I also like the shore, just like the shore
cool.
of like where the house is, because
Yeah.
that's like where they're going. That's where everything's happening. They can't really seem to leave there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like some of those. I think the green door is more like a hidden nugget. And
It
I
is.
think
It would have to have
the
a double
last,
meaning to make it
Yeah.
feel like it's related to the beach house.
Yeah.
Because then you could, marketing wise, especially, you could make it seem like one thing and then it actually is something entirely different. I like the shore a lot. This family name I had was something like the Freemans. And they'll all obviously like free man, like they're trying to get out from underneath whatever it is possessing them. But I think thematically, to really put a nail on it, like to totally try and just knock it out of the park here, is it again, it's about discovering your true self, and it's what you do in the face of that. And so like the mom is choosing her self-interest, even though it's a good one. Like it foregoes like the immediate issue. The dad chooses it but fails in the process because he gets betrayed by the double agent. And then the daughter is pursuing her true self. And I don't use true self like it's in the fashionable sense nowadays of like, you got to just be true to yourself. I mean like in a biblical sense, like your flesh, you're going against the worst version of yourself in your head. And you do have to take self-destructive measures to do that. A little bit of hot gospel coming in there, but the cut behind your ear thing is a little bit of that. And then this idea that young girls of that age also are dealing with self-harm issues and self-harm thoughts, that maybe this girl has dealt with that in the past. And then this grandfather character is coming in and being like, you need to do that. That's scary in and of itself. But then you realize that it's actually to get out. Like it's to pull the tracker out of your head, and then it's to ostensibly drown yourself, even though it's not really. Like she's going to get sucked through a pipe or whatever, that she has to shed herself, and the true self comes out, and the dad is like, my true self isn't worth living. So maybe he does sacrifice himself. Like he realizes that his flesh, I was living a lie the whole time. And when I learned the truth about myself, I didn't like it, kind of thing. So anyway, again, trying not to mix all of the self and true self kind of psycho babbly talk. But I that's where the title would come from for me. And I do like the shore because of that, because there is knowledge is like being on land, and the unknown is out in the
ocean.
In the ocean.
Well, then let's do tentatively the shore. I like the shore. I think that sounds like it'd either be a romantic movie or a horror movie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I like the shore. Zach, you're very good at tying theme back together at the end. So I appreciate you for that, because I think I'm just like, yeah, spooky story. And you're like, but the theme is this. I'm like, you're right. The theme is that.
Well, theme is just character. And that's K.M. Weiland talking. That's story by Robert McKee talking, like structure and all of that. Like I've just eaten that for a long time. So that kind of comes out in crazy ways, but I appreciate that. And I kind of want to take a stab at the along the lines, but I also want to hear what you have to say about that.
Dude, your along the lines could be the dad speaking to the teenage girl, and it's, you stabbed me.
I thought about that too, like just doing a really dumb line, just like the dad saying like, I really want burgers for dinner. Like it has nothing to do with the theme at all, because the goal is to hit the along the lines, to be like the theme kind of succinctly said. I think this comes from the dad character when he has come to the fullness of his memory. He's come to the full realization of who he is. He's also now decided to help the little girl, because he's like waffling there for a minute. We don't know as the audience what he's going to do. And he grabs her, she realizes she's terrified of him, and she realizes that he is a killer. He realizes he's a killer. He's got all of his tattoos and everything. It's very scary. And he says, I am not my memories.
Thank you all for listening to StoryFellas, a part of the Pemmican Studios podcast network. Check out our show notes for bonus material, links, and more. To find out more about our current projects, send us messages, and suggest ideas for the show, go to StoryFellasPodcast.com. If you liked what you heard, share the show with a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community. Until next time, go make and break those stories.